What's up, everybody? I'm live right now. I'm on Instagram as well as YouTube, so it's a little confusing where to look, but we're just about to get started in 5 minutes. Today's going to be a pretty big live stream. Um, we have a lot to cover in today's live stream, so I hope you guys are ready for that. What's up, everybody? Again, I'm about to get started in just 5 minutes, so let's just wait for a couple people to come in and we'll get started. In the meantime, feel free to grab a beverage. I'm just going to pour myself some water. It's going to be a 2-hour live stream, so get ready. The YouTube for people watching on Instagram is youtube.com/avnux. Alright guys, are we ready to get started? How's everybody feeling? People on Instagram, I'm going to cut this stream right now because I'm going to jump into YouTube. I realize I can't focus on both at the same time. So we're going to jump into YouTube, jump in there, pinned message youtube.com/abnux. I'll see you there. So guys, we're just about to get started. For people asking if this is being recorded, yes, it is going to be on the YouTube channel just after this. It's going to be a long 2-hour video that you can also watch in later. What's up guys, we're about to get started. Let's set the vibe. I hope you guys have your beverages with you. I'm going to light a candle here, set the vibe for the mood. Damn, this is really about to be an elaborate live stream. Let me just set up my comments on the side and we're just going to get into it. Alright guys, and now we get into the live stream. Let's go. Just gonna switch my scenes here. I hope it's not lagging. I think it will in between. Damn. If there was something I could do about this lag. Where do I lower the bitrate? Do you know where it is? Yeah, it might be a little flaky, but hope it's chill moving forward. I can't really do anything about it right now, but let's see. Alright guys, I hope everything goes fine, and I hope we're all good likewise, but I'm about to get started. This is going to be the first live stream on YouTube among a series of live streams coming up. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to just see if I can change the bitrate as Saksham recommends. Okay. I do not think changing bitrate is possible while streaming. So let's see. Ah, got it. Cool. What's a good bitrate? 1200 to 1500. 1500. My bitrate was way too high, guys. I think this could be the reason. Okay, I think that should fix things. Just gonna get into it now. Just setting up my comments in the side so I can see what you guys are talking about. Alright guys, let's get started. Welcome to the live stream. Thank you for joining in. We have the vibe set and we're ready to go. In this live stream, I want to cover roughly 3 things, right? First, I want to start with the very basics of UI UX. I'm going to assume you guys know either very little or you've worked with maybe a little bit here and there, but I'm going to keep it super basic. By no means will this cover everything in UI, everything in UX, but it'll cover everything you need to know to get started, right? When it comes to Figma, I'm going to be covering all the functionality. Now this should cover about 80% of all functionality that you will need to do most things in Figma. So that should be good for you guys. What I'm going to do now is switch my scene. So here we are in Figma, right? But now there's a reason why we're starting with the tools first and then the theory second. So now if you look at design school typically teaches it the other way around. They start with theory, they start with the fundamentals, the history of how the field reached at this point, and then they dive into the tools. But as a self-learner, it's better to do it the other way around. The reason for this is if you don't know the tools, like if you don't know Figma, XD or Sketch, one of these are the 3 primary tools. You need to choose one for UI UX design. I'm choosing Figma. This There's a very good reason for this. You guys will see that reason in a bit. One of the biggest reasons actually is you can actually come into my file, so we can all edit and work on the same file at the same time. Now this is something that XD and Sketch do not offer. So for this kind of classroom format, which is this live stream, Figma is going to be really good. So for us, this is going to be really useful in a lot of ways. Now, before I get into the actual tool itself, I want to talk a little bit about what is UI and what is UX. Now, if you're in the stream, you probably already know it's user interface, user experience. The interface part, let's talk about that for a sec. Now, if you trace this back to when computers first started, that was probably the birth of user interfaces, although machines have had interfaces for a really long time. The kind of interfaces we're talking about are digital interfaces. So this includes apps, which is on your phone or on your computer. This includes website, which is in a browser. It includes other use cases, but these two are the main things. So as a UI UX designer, most of the times you're going to be designing apps or websites. For both of these things, you're going to be spending most of your time in Figma. You are going to be using other tools like Principle, Protopy. These are for prototyping. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to talk just about Figma. Now, let me give you a basic understanding of UI to just build some appreciation for what it is, right? Now, let's look at an app that all of us use. Let's use an app, let's pick an app like WhatsApp. Now, with WhatsApp, you realize that the app is designed in a certain way. When you look at the UI, you're like, this is a very simple UI. It's all there like this, right? And the reason we're so used to it is because it's probably a very intuitive UI. It's been designed exactly for the way you expect to use WhatsApp. But if you start thinking now, why is WhatsApp designed the way it is? Why doesn't it look different? So, what are some ways it could be different? Let's say the main home screen, instead of a list of chats, what if you had a grid of chats, right? So let's say what I'm going to do here is draw a frame. I'm going to talk about what a frame is in just a sec. But you know how WhatsApp, you have this. Guys, I will not delete the stream later. The stream will be on my channel. So you guys are free to check this out, watch this at your own pace later as well. What I'm doing right now in Figma is creating something what you would call a wireframe. A wireframe is a representation of what a UI might look like without being the final output. Now don't worry about how I'm doing this. We're going to talk about that in just a sec when we get into the Figma part. But what I'm talking about now is just a little bit of the basics. So you have the screen. This is somewhat how WhatsApp would look like. If you're on Android, it's a little different. If you're on iOS, it's a little different. But basically, you have this top bar here. And you have your chats, right? Overall, this is what the UI of WhatsApp looks like. Of course, it's very simple. I'm skipping out on a lot of things, like creating new chats, editing and all that. But here we have this. Now what if instead of like this, WhatsApp totally changed the UI and made it like this, right? The UI was these kind of blocks, and each of these blocks there's something like this, and within this, now you had the person who you were chatting with, you had the name of the person, and then you had the most recent message that they sent. Right? Now, what I want you to tell me now in the chats is, if WhatsApp had this kind of UI, would it be better or would it be worse? Just your guess. Just based on your initial gut feel, what do you think about a UI like this? Would you enjoy using WhatsApp more? What would be some advantages? What would be some disadvantages? Tell me in the chat. Now I can already see some comments, and you guys are saying it might be worse, right? And there are very good reasons for that, right? Uh, now I'm just going to talk about, let's say I'll talk about three of them right now. First one being, clearly you can see on the left one, you can see more items. On the right, you're seeing lesser items. So by that itself, you would have to scroll more if it was the right UI, right? Then on the left one, if this message was longer, like this, it wouldn't show up nicely in this grid, right? It would sort of get truncated after 2 sentences. And there are a bunch of reasons like that. Once you actually start getting into it, once you start comparing both of these things, you'll reach an optimum solution. You'll be like, okay, the left is probably a better solution. Another reason could be the left, if I look at my eye how it goes, I can read it just like this. So let's say I wanted to chat with my mom. I would immediately just look at the profile pictures, it would go here, and then I would be able to see, okay, that's my mom. But on the right one, I would have to go like this. I would have to see left, right. So it would be harder to scan. So for me to find my mom in this list, I would have to scroll and then I would have to click it. So this, when I'm telling you, it might seem like small inconveniences. It's like, that's okay, right? It might just be okay. But the point is, an app like WhatsApp, right? Whether you use Android or iOS, I want you to go into your screen, into your settings later and see in a week how much do you use WhatsApp, right? I'm pretty sure it's more than what you think it is. When for me it's at least a couple hours. 1 hour is minimum, and I use it way more than that. And it's the same for apps like Instagram and others. So even if it takes a few milliseconds longer for me to do an action, it adds up. It adds up not just for me over a day, over a week, over a month. It adds up for the millions of people around the world who are using WhatsApp. And think of that in terms of human time. How much human time would be lost trying to figure out how to do things, trying to do more stuff on your screen to get the same result. Now, at a very broad overview, that's why designing UI is important. Designing UI, you see, both of these are not visual design. Both of these are very basics. But with these few 2-3 things we talked about, I've sort of gotten the idea through of why UI design is important. It's not just about how it looks, it's about how it works. That includes hierarchy, that includes the actual visuals, that includes the structure of a page. So with that being said, it's very clear the left one is much better, right? Now also, if you think about all messaging apps, right? You think about WhatsApp, you think about DMs in Instagram, DMs in Twitter, SMSs, all of them look like this, right? And there's a reason for this. Usually, when you see something repeating across multiple apps, multiple products, you call this a pattern. Now, patterns are really useful because if a pattern exists, like let's say most messages look like a list, users, the people who use these apps, they know what to expect from messages. So let's say you were launching a new chat app tomorrow. If you made it just like this, just like WhatsApp, people would have no problem using it because in their mind, that pattern is already established. They know how to use it. So a big part of being a UI UX designer is being aware of what patterns exist in the world, in the wild. What that means is you need to be very aware of what are the apps out there, what are the apps that people spend most of their time on in the country you live in, but also in the world, and what are patterns people are already familiar with. So let's say one day if you were designing a checkout flow for an online shop, there are certain patterns people are used to when they think about checkout, when they think about doing checkouts online. And you might think about an app like, give me a sec, I'm just going to check on the stream. I'm going to continue that thought, just 1 second. Alright, getting back to the stream now. Things seems okay with a few lags in between, but it should fix itself over time. What I was saying was, let's say you have to design a checkout someday in the future. A design process typically looks like this. You have a step called research. If I had to break down what are the steps in a design process, this is what they are. Right? And if you Google steps in a design process, you're going to find different results online. That's okay. For our purposes right now, I would like you guys to remember these steps, because roughly these are the steps we will follow when designing any app or website. Right? If you guys want to check a little deeper into these things after the video is done, I have a video on this on my YouTube channel. This was created maybe more than a year back, so it's a little different, and it is, don't see it, man, steps in the design process. So in this video, for example, what I did was, so you can see already this video is very different. It was sort of shaky, there was no tripod here either, but this talks about the examples, and I also in this video talk about how I would go about explaining an app, right? But that's okay for now. We can get back to Figma. So now research, now each of these is technically a very big step. You can go and spend days studying about each of these, but of course I can't do that in this video, so I'm going to be covering each of these just a little by little, right? Now, what is the difference between UI and UX? Let me talk about that for a sec. When I talk about UI, I'm talking about the interface. When I talk about UX, I'm talking about the experience with the interface, right? Which is, they're not two different things, but if you guys have to visualize it, this is how you would do it. You have UI, you have UX. UI is one part of it, right? And then there's another part of it, which is UX. So your experience with an app is going to be determined by what the UI of the app is. So there are, of course, when you look at job postings, right? There are UI designers, there are UX designers, there are UI/UX designers, there are product designers. Now, what you do need to know is, while these roles are sort of different, my recommendation as a self-taught designer is for you to know both, which is, in colleges, for example, they might teach you, they might be very UX heavy and less UI heavy, because college is trying to prepare you for multiple scenarios. But as a self-taught designer, the scenarios that you're preparing for are, you want a job at a startup or a product company or a services company, an agency, or you want to make money freelancing. In both of these cases, for you to have the best shot at success, I would say you need to be a UI and UX designer. Don't think of yourself as, I can't do visuals, or I don't know what UX is. Both can be taught. Talking about myself, I've never been to design school, right? Everything I know, I've learned it online. I've learned it through working with different design teams over the past maybe 7 years, and this is something that's very learnable, which is why this YouTube channel exists, where I try to teach you that. Alright, so that is an overview of UI and UX. Of course, that's very basic. I could dive in much deeper, but I'm hoping that gave you enough of an idea to do your own research and figure out more. What I'll also be doing in this video, something to watch out for in just a bit, is I'm going to be sharing a link to a Telegram group. This Telegram group is where we're going to discuss design. And in that Telegram group, for everybody watching right now, I'm going to be sharing an invite code, an invite URL to Booklets IO. Booklets IO is a product that I'm working on. Alright, we're back in the stream. I guess there was a lag there. So as I just said, I'm going to share a link with Booklets.io in a Telegram group. The Telegram group doesn't exist yet. Here's the scene. In this video, we're going to be talking about Figma. We're going to be talking about how to actually design apps. Practically, after you finish watching this video, you can go back and you can actually design a screen all by yourself. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to be great, but it's going to be a start, and that start is going to get you forward. Booklets.io, I'm going to be sharing. So this is an Instagram account. You guys can follow this for sure. There's already a lot of stuff here relevant to the things we talked about. For example, there's this one post here about what is UX and what is UI, the differences between them, right? This even talks about CX, which is an overall, which is something outside UX as well, which is customer experience. So you guys can check this out. What I'm going to be doing is creating a Telegram group. This Telegram group, the link, I'm going to share it in this live chat. I don't want to do it right now in between. I'll share it maybe at exactly 10 p.m. I'm going to be creating a new Telegram group, sharing the beta there, and after this live stream, you guys can go check that out. So what I just said, if the video was lagging, if you guys couldn't catch that, let me just check my stream settings here. Okay, I think we're back. The Telegram group is going to be shared at 10 p.m. and that's going to contain an invite to the website booklets.io. So we're now going to get into Figma. We're going to talk about the basics of Figma. I've already drawn a little bit here, but we're actually going to make something now, right? Are you guys having fun? We're going to take a small 2-minute break before we get in. I know there's a lag. Hopefully I can fix that in the next stream. Yes, that is milk. That is my beverage for tonight. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, this is the layout of Figma, right? What you should do is you should download the Figma app on your phone. I mean, not on your phone, sorry, on your computer. You can also access it in your browser. So you can go to figma.com and actually work entirely in figma.com. I use the browser. That's up to you. Now, in Figma, once you log in, just create a new file. I've done that here. This is the interface. I'm going to change this to YouTube live stream. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys a little something cool, which is I'm actually going to invite all of you guys to this Figma file. So I'm going to paste this in the chat. For those of you who are on a computer, you can open this up and you'll actually be able to see me work. Right? So I'll actually be able to see you guys on the file moving around, but don't distract me, please. I've given you guys view access so you can actually view. I already see one person anonymous floating around here. On the top right here, I see people who are coming in. I actually don't know what the limit is, how many people can be in here at once, but we're going to test that tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little lounge for you guys. I'm using the rectangle tool. I'm going to call this I want you guys to chill in the lounge for a sec. Move your cursors here. Let's see all that. Let's see that happening. Everybody get into this box right here. Let's just chill out here. Let me add some food for you guys. So now you see why Figma is so cool, right? If I was using Sketch or XD, we would not be able to do this. But right here, all of you guys can actually see me move around, right? If you're working in a team, let's say you're working with developers, you're working with other designers, you can actually all work together in the same file. Now you might be thinking that gets chaotic, but usually what happens is there are multiple pages. So on your left side, you see page 1. You guys should go click that right now. Come join me on page 1. Let's check this out. Here you'll see the thing that I just created. You'll see the wireframes we were just talking about. And you guys can't edit any of this because I've given view access. If I gave edit access, that would be a whole different thing. That would be like a Figma party where we're all editing and making random shit. We are going to do that in a future live stream though. That's going to be really fun. It's not going to be this one though. In this one, we're going to understand how to use Figma and how to get familiar with the tool. Alright. So we're going to get started now. I hope Figma doesn't crash. But we have about 20, maybe 21, 23 people on this file. Now, I'm going to create a new page. This is going to be the page where I talk about designs. You guys are free to chill out on whatever page you want. But I'm just going to replicate the cursor lounge here. Just to not distract me while I'm working in Figma, I would ask that you guys just chill out in the cursor lounge. I'm going to add a little sofa here. And I'm going to add some chairs as well. Chairs. I'm just going to add more sofas. Do you guys want more food? Alright, so guys, please stay around the cursor launch. I know this is not a very great one. Uh, Actually, give me a sec. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna show you a little bit more about Figma by going into one of my other projects. And in this project, I'm gonna copy something from here and move it to our file, and we're gonna have a way nicer lounge to chill in. Have you guys played Pokemon before? How many of you have? I want to see it in the chat right now. In the chat, have you guys played Pokemon before? Because I'm just going to give you like a really cool lounge to chill in, and it's going to be from the Pokemon game. And this is going to be our lounge number 2 for tonight. So guys, what you can actually see, what is very interesting is this entire game thing. I actually made this in Figma. So Figma is not just for screens. You can actually do a lot more with it once you're comfortable. So in this lounge, you see all of these items. You can actually click on them, and I think on the left side, the layers panel, you will be able to see the individual layers as well. I'm going to call this one Cursor Lounge 2. Isn't that crazy? Are you guys having fun? What do you guys like better? Cursor Lounge 1 or Cursor Lounge 2? Let's vote in the chat right now. Lounge 1 or Lounge 2? Lounge 2 for sure. Now you guys know why I created Cursor Lounge 1, right? I was leading up to the Cursor Lounge 2. But you can see, right, this is not a standard tutorial right here. This live class, this classroom that we're in right now, is way better than just watching a video, right? You're actually interacting with what I'm talking about right now. And there's no better way to learn the tool than play with it, right? We're literally having fun right here in a cursor lounge. Now imagine if you can have so much fun in Figma. You can have lounges like this. How it would be like for an app, an actual app. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of what the Booklets Figma file looks like. And with this, we're going to be getting into a little bit about our tutorials. So one thing that I want you guys to just be mindful of is the way Figma is arranged is you have files, right? You have Figma files. The file that I shared with you guys, that's the file. On the left, you have pages. These pages are what you should use to sort of separate your work. Just keep different areas where you need to work. So for example, in the Booklets Figma file, I have this, which is brand. Here is where me and a friend of mine, Sneha Shankar, she did the logo that you see here for Booklets. So this is the page that we use to figure out our branding stuff, right? I have another page here where I made a lot of the summaries for Booklets IO. These were some of the posts that I made. These were some of the iterations. You can see this here. These were the posts. You guys can see this. So these are actually booklets that would actually be really helpful to you guys. These are not on Instagram yet. These are some special edition booklets. The Telegram group where I will share the invite to beta, booklets beta. You guys will be able to read all of these booklets right there. So stick around for that. I'm going to share that in about 15 minutes. So 10 o'clock, I'm going to be creating the Telegram group and sharing the link with all of you guys. Okay, so let me get back into the YouTube live stream page here. So on the structure of Figma roughly works like this. There are files. File here is the YouTube live stream we're on. There are pages. Pages is the thing that you see on the left. Now inside a page, you have something called frames, right? What is a frame? A frame is like an artboard. If you've used Sketch or other design tools, you would know what it is. But basically, a frame is, you would use a frame, one frame for one screen. So a frame is something that just contains your design. So if you look here, this cursor launch 2, you see this icon here in the layer panel. This is a frame, right? Now inside a frame you have layers. These layers are the things you see here. So in cursor launch 2, this sofa, these flowers right here, this table, these are all composed of layers, right? This, for example, is just one single stool, but you can also have groups. So what I'm going to say is groups and then layers. So a group is basically a group of layers. So for example, this thing here, you see I'm moving this around because I've grouped those layers. Now grouping your layers is super important because it helps you manage things. When you're moving stuff around on the screen, grouping layers is what will help you go fast. So always be mindful of what your layers look like here. Layers also have a position, which is this group right here. I can either hide it, I can show it, and this layer, for example, is above the floor, right? When I say it this way, it becomes very easy to understand, which is there's a floor layer, right? On the left here, you have this carpet layer. Guys, give me just 1 second. Hello. हाँ मैं वीडियो बना रहा हूँ अभी. I'll call you बाद में. Okay. Bye. Alright guys, I'm back. So I was talking about layers. Layers, and then there are groups of layers. Right here, there's a floor layer. There's a group where each of these tiles is actually a layer by themselves. So don't worry too much about that. You'll figure it out as we go in. This is overall what Figma looks like, right? So let's say today I was designing a website, or today I was designing an app. The first thing I would start with in my Figma file, I would create the Figma file. It's blank, and now I would say new frame. I would go right here and say frame, or I can use the F shortcut here. On the right side here, you have these different sizes. Now this is really useful because you don't need to worry about what size should the device be, what size should my screen size be, right? There are predefined sizes here. You have phone, tablet, desktop, watch, and a few more things. So today, let's say we were designing an app for iPhone 8. So I'm going to create a frame for iPhone 8. I'll also create a frame for a website. So I'm going to go desktop and desktop. So you see I've created 2 frames here. This is the start of any Figma file. Based on what you're designing, you would have frames corresponding to the device you're working with. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about a little hack that you can use to wireframe really fast. Whether you're designing for iOS or Android, you can actually get kits. These kits are, so let's say today I was designing a website firstly, so I'll open this one. And I will also open this. So UI kits are actually really useful because you can actually start designing quickly, especially when you're wireframe. Typically when I wireframe on paper. So let me give you an example of that. Let me show you guys my notebook. Now, I'm not going to talk about specifically what app this is, but roughly you can see this, right? This would be considered a wireframe. This is, before I start designing, what I'm doing is I'm just planning out what it would look like. The ideas that I have in my head, I'm quickly jotting them down in the form of sketches, so that once I actually get into Figma, I can start trying those out, right? So let me show you some wireframes that I've done for other apps that I have made. So check this one out, right? So this is actually a wireframe for the Unacademy website. I don't know when I made this, but we were roughly planning out what contents to have on the website. So we were discussing, and then eventually we were like, okay, let's do this. Let's have a section on top. We'll have a main this thing, which is Join India's largest learning platform. We can have these elements floating around. Each of these can be a different category. We can have a search bar. And we were just discussing, right? The ideas that people were talking about, I just started putting them to paper. This was a good way to visualize ideas. So when I tell you, we can have something like this where it goes like that, you're probably thinking of very different things. But showing a wireframe can be a very fast way to get on the same page with somebody, so that the ideas they have, whether they're a designer or not a designer, they can quickly sketch out what they mean. So you guys remember the steps of the design process I talked about? Wireframing is a big part of that. Now you guys notice wireframing is number 3, information architecture. Don't really worry about that, because the way it actually works is it's iterative, which is you don't start with research first and then information architecture, then wireframe. You don't just go in an order. You typically start with one, go to the next. If needed, you go back to wireframe, right? Maybe I did this, maybe I did a visual design and realized something, I wasn't really thinking it clearly. So then I would go back to wireframe. Or the information architecture in this case would be, how do I arrange my information, right? So typically that would just not even be a diagram, it would just be writing. Like I would just write down what my website should have. So I would start with header, talk about what the app is, include search, have links to these categories, and then I would just write down the information that it should have. And if there are multiple pages, so whether website or app there are multiple pages, the information architecture would talk about how it connects. So if I click here, where should it go? That's information architecture. Research is very broad, but one type of research that I might do is I might check out other landing pages to see how they do it, to get some ideas. That's one form of research. Another thing I might do is I might talk to our existing users and ask them and just get into a conversation to figure out what can be improved, right? So for example, in conversation with them, I might realize that a lot of them, let's say, come for IIT-JEE, but they don't know where to go because they can't see IIT-JEE on the page. So then I might realize, okay, I should maybe make these more clear. Or I might go to the Play Store or App Store rating or check out reviews or some other place where I might realize that people are having a problem where finding which classes are live right now. So based on that, I might in my design, when I get to wireframing or information architecture, realize that okay, this section I think it's fairly important to put it here. So that is information architecture. I am of course abstracting all of this. I'm just telling you in basic, but that's how it goes. So coming back to our frames here, this iPhone frame and this desktop frame. What we were talking about is using kits. Now when you're wireframing, you can actually use one of these design kits to quickly design stuff, but I would suggest, right, just to be very upfront, alright guys, I'm back. So as I was saying, you don't want to jump into UI kits too soon. Good designers I know always start with sketches. They start with sketching because if you jump into Figma too soon, if you start designing and using all of these things and making wireframes too soon, you're jumping to a solution. Oops guys, I realized I wasn't showing Figma on my screen, but here it is. You guys didn't miss anything. I was actually just, back when I was talking about these steps of the process. I was talking about how research is important, what information architecture looks like. And what I was saying was, this is what a UI kit looks like, right? This is the iOS design screen. These are the iOS elements. There's similar ones for material design, which is Android. There are web UI kits if you need it. Usually you don't need it. But what I was saying was, you don't want to jump into Figma too fast. Like let's say you're designing something, don't go first into Figma. Go to your notebook first, because you don't want to get to the solution before you know what the problem is. And for that you need to do research, which is talking to the person who asked you to design. Let's say it's a client. You want to understand as much from them as possible. If it is the startup you work for, product manager, it's the CEO, you want to talk to them and understand the problem really well. Once you understand the problem, you need to make these wireframes to put it down and to translate what you've been told visually into what a solution might look like. And the reason you do paper wireframes first is because it's really fast to do paper wireframes. So when things are much faster to do, you're likely to try out a lot more. Versus if each iteration, if trying it out each time took 20 minutes, you wouldn't try 10 iterations, right? Versus if each iteration took maybe 1 minute, you're more likely to spend more time exploring. So sketching is a super important part of the process. Make sure you always sketch before you get into Figma. These are some wireframe kits that can be useful, but I would say do not get too dependent on these. If possible, over time, try to make your own kits. For iOS, for material design, it's better to use the official kits. For web, over time, you'll sort of have certain things that you can copy from different files. Develop your own kit over time. Alright, getting back to Figma now. Are you guys following along? Is everything all good? What I'm just going to do, I'm going to check what's happening on Instagram. In case people don't know the stream is happening here. I'm going to share an image. I'm going to share a picture of our amazing cursor lounge. Oh, where'd it go? Guys, did the cursor lounge disappear? Oh, it's here, okay. Guys, can everybody just come into the picture? Can everybody just come out, hang out in Cursor Lounge? I want to take a photograph and post this on Instagram. In case people don't know this is happening. The Cursor Lounge can be found on page 3 What I'm going to do now is also create the yo guys, say what's up. I'm also going to create the Telegram group right now, and just after that we're going to get into how to design screens in Figma. Alright guys, so now I am going to create the Telegram group. Are you guys ready for this? What do I call this group? I'm going to call it UX. The group is created. I am now sharing a link. Alright guys, here we go. That's the link to Telegram. Jump in right now. And we're just gonna get into Figma after this, after I see all of you guys in the group chat. People coming in, good to see. The group's active already. I'm gonna mute the Avalon group. For guys who are on the Avalon group, you guys know how active that is. I'm just getting like notifications as I'm trying to do stuff. I'm gonna mute the Avalon group. Alright. The time has come for us to jump back into Figma. So far, to recap what we've done, we've talked a little bit about what UI is. We talked about a little bit about what UX is, how UI and UX fit together. We talked about what the steps in a design process are. We talked roughly about we spoke roughly about what research is, what information architecture is, what wireframing is. We didn't really speak about visual design, which is what I'm going to get into right now. We didn't really talk about prototyping, which we'll do after visual design. And testing is basically just user testing. It's showing people and making sure people get it, right? And it can be done in multiple ways, but I'm probably not going to cover that part in this video. Alright, so I'm going to switch back to YouTube comments so I can see what's happening. Links not working. Okay, guys, let me just check. Do I need to change some privacy settings or something? I can see a lot of you have joined it, so it should be chill. Can somebody tell me if I need to change some privacy settings for groups? If there's a reason why people are not able to join. Okay, got it. It was a private group. I'm just changing this. So the group, you can check it out. It's t.me/abnux. That's the URL that I've just gotten. I'm going to share it with you guys here. Okay guys, the people who were having problems, it was a private group, sorry about that. It should work now. Check it out. Alright, it's working. Are you guys able to join? Alright, let's put that aside for now. I am going to share the booklets URL here, but I'm going to share it once all of you guys join. So I don't want you to miss out on that. So we'll do that a little bit after we are done with Figma. Okay, back to this. I'm just going to delete page 2 here. Let me switch back to my screen. I'm going to call this page Chill Out Lounges because that's where the lounges are. And I'm going to move this to a new page. I'm going to call this screens. Okay guys, let's get started. So, firstly, I want to talk about grids, right? Grids are something which is really important, which is now that you have these empty frames on your this thing, it can be intimidating. Like, how do you even start? The best way to start is to start by putting down a grid. For desktop, the grid that people normally use is a 12 column grid. That's what it's called. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 12 column. I'm going to say margins of, I don't know, whatever, man, like 300. And I have this, right? Typically, if you want to figure out the columns that another website uses, right? Let's say you want to use that as reference. You could just paste a screenshot of a different website here, figure out what their columns are, and you'll see that everything falls on the grid, right? Nothing is random. When we're designing UI, everything is actually pixel perfect, which means everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. Things shouldn't be up and down, they should exactly be aligned. Because when things are aligned to a grid, that's when you have something called balance, right? Not just balance, but also, what do you call it? You have rhythm. Let me just check my internet. Actually, hold on. Okay, that's fine. So you'll have something called rhythm, which is, if you actually guys want to talk about that, I'll actually talk about that in a different video. But what rhythm is. Now, what right now is the fundamentals of visual design. I can roughly go over them, but the video you guys should watch for that is this one. Fundamentals of visual design. So this talks about balance, emphasis, hierarchy, repetition, proximity, and proportion. Now these are principles of visual design. This is a 20-minute video, you guys can watch it afterwards. I think I should not cover this right now because that'd be a lot for the stream, but I'll talk about it wherever it's relevant. So coming back to this, now let's just get familiar with the things that you can do on Figma. So I've talked about the layout of everything. You have files, you have pages, you have frames, groups, layers. Now, from the top here, by default you're on move. Scale is something you would use if you want to increase the size of something. Frame is what you would use to create a new frame. These options right here, this is what you would use if you wanted to create shapes. Now, if you think about it, most of UI, it's shapes. It's buttons, it's lists, it's text and it's shapes. Roughly, that's what UI is, right? Abstracting it very, very much. These are the shapes right here. You have a pen tool here. This is used for illustrations. You don't technically need to be an illustrator to be able to. Most UI UX designers are actually not illustrators. Illustration is a skill you pick up separately. Most experienced illustrators use Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, but a lot of people now use Figma for illustrations. At Unacademy, we use both. We use Figma for a lot of the collaborative illustration work, but Illustrator for all the powerful things that it has. I think the stream is lagging, which is why I've stopped for a sec. Once it picks up again, I'm going to get back into this. Okay, I'm going to get into this now. So, what I'm going to do now is very quickly, design a page for an app and design a website. And once I do this, I'll then walk you through the individual things that I did, okay? So, somebody time me on this. I'm going to take about 2 minutes. I don't know. Let's see. So, I'm going to hide this grid for now. let's say we were designing a page for 10K designers, right? This is not how I would start designing. I would start with content first and then wireframes. But for now, I'm just going to do this. Hope you guys can see me. Just drop a message in the chats, please, for everybody who's still around. Because I don't know when it lags, so I wouldn't know. Just want to be sure. Yes, Figma will be ahead of YouTube. That's because YouTube tries to maintain a 15 minutes of a gap. Ten seconds of lag. Okay, so guys, you see what I'm doing here is I'm just putting some shit down to be very honest, because once I do this, I'll talk about what I actually did. I'll talk about the individual elements in this UI. And of course, all these files will be available to you because I've shared the link with you guys. Just saying. What I'm going to do here is put a logo. So guys, if I had to do the information architecture, how would I do it for this? Just, what do you guys think? Because you see me doing it, I'm basically on the fly figuring out what to put. But if I had to do information architecture, I would do it page wise. I would say there should be a header. This header will roughly have the main links, important links that people will need to access. while I'm designing, I'm just going to answer the questions you guys are posting on chat. Subarashi says, I don't know how to draw and terrible. Can I be a product designer? Definitely you don't need to draw. You don't need to draw. You just need to be able to sketch such that you can communicate your ideas. Another question, what do you choose, Webflow or Figma for web design? Sagar, Webflow is what I would use to actually, so yeah, feel free to ask questions while I'm doing this. Webflow is what I would use to actually make the website and make it live. To design the website, I would start on paper, then Figma, and then Webflow. Why do we choose a 12-column grid? Anish, the reason why we chose a 12-column grid, right, is that I'll show you in just a second. Actually, it'll be better when I show it to you. Which MacBook? I have a MacBook Pro. It's a 2013 MacBook Pro. My Figma is also like lagging a little bit. There's a big lag, man, on my Figma. It's not just the stream. I mean, this one right now. Josh asked, can we use Webflow to figure out backend as well? Yes, you can. So, if you go to UISources.com, that is actually a website I have made completely with Webflow, and the backend is Webflow CMS. Now, the thing is, it costs $50 a month. But technically UISources.com makes money, so I'm okay spending that $50 a month. The plan that I'm on spends is $50 a month. Might be cheaper for you guys, but the minimum is I think 15. Yeah, $15 a month for Webflow. Okay, now let's talk about grids, right? Why did I choose a 12-column grid? So you see there's 12 columns here. Now the reason is, let's say I want to add a block like this called videos, right? And I want to make it, I want to add a grid of 3 videos, which is like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. With a 12-column grid, since 12 is divisible by 2 as well as 3, it makes it very simple. So watch this. So 12 divided by 3 would be 4. So what I would do is I would just create this like this. Now let's say I wanted a 4-column grid, which is I want 4 items in a row. I would do this, right? So technically, you want to choose your grid in a way that's flexible, because I'll show you a very real example of this, right? On Booklets.io, what I had done was I had initially started with an 8-column grid, right? I was just going with the flow. There's no reason for 8-column. I just did it. But what I realized was 8 was great for stuff like this, where it was 4. I could just do 2, 2, 2, 2. But the minute I wanted to do a 3 thing, right? The minute I wanted to do this I couldn't do on 8. Then it was like on fractions. So then I ended up changing the grid to a 12-column grid. So here in Booklets, you see that the left sidebar I've actually made it separate, so it's not on the grid. The central, everything is on the grid. Yeah. So that's the grid part of it. Yes, Bootstrap also uses a similar grid pattern. So if you guys ever have to use Bootstrap, or even if you don't, Bootstrap has this thing which is when you're creating the divs, right? If you guys are web developers, you would know this. When you're creating grids, when you have a div, let's say you have a div is basically a container, you would give it a class which is called for, which is it should go over 4 columns. You can say call 4, call 2, call 12, and based on that you can design. So the concept of a grid carries over to the development as well. So when you're going to be working with developers, you guys have to actually tell them what the grid is. Or if you're making it in Webflow, perfect, because Webflow also has a grid system. So whatever you do in Figma, you'll be able to do that in Webflow. For people who want the Figma link, just scroll up in the chats, go to somewhere in the beginning of this, not exactly the beginning, but somewhere there, you'll find the link to Figma. You will also find the link to Telegram somewhere there. So join that group because I'll be sharing stuff after this video over there. Alright, jumping back here. I'm just going to duplicate this. So somebody asked Figma Sketch. Obviously you want to use Figma firstly because you're seeing a tutorial about it right now, but look at this, man, like everybody is on this file together. You will not be able to do that with whatever else you use. This collaboration thing is actually really useful. You don't have to keep exporting PNGs and sending it over. You can just quickly share with people. Okay, so in exactly 15 seconds, I'm going to start talking about what I've done here. So let's count that down. Alright, 15 seconds up. Let's start. Okay, so guys, this is what I have here. I know this isn't great. I just did that right now. Figma, by the way, is free. You will only have to pay for it when you're using it in a team. It's free for students. It's free for personal projects. It's free for up to 2 collaborators. I'm just going to share the Figma link again for people who missed it. But actually, can somebody else do it? Somebody in the chat, please share the Figma link in the comments. You can get it by going here into share and copying the link. Okay guys, now let's talk about this. Let's talk about what just happened, right? So I use a rectangle tool to create this. I just used the text layer. You can see that here. These were created with text layers. So let's break this page down into its individual components. What does it have right now, and what is the styling on each of these? Because visual design is a lot about styling. Weird statement, but stick with me here, right? So I have this rectangle here. What I did was I drew the rectangle, and then I changed its color to be a light gray, right? What exactly I wanted that light gray to be, I just randomly picked it, right? Being very honest here. Then I put this over here, right? This is a header, which is why I made it bigger. Now, one of the visual design fundamentals of visual design is called hierarchy, which is the most important thing on your page should be bigger, and then the less important thing should be smaller in general. But there's also this pattern in web design, which is things should flow like this, because you start reading when you land on a page, and then you go around the page and read. There's also one thing called an F-shaped pattern, which is you usually read like this, and then you keep going down like an F. So I put this here. Guys, if you haven't got the link, has nobody shared it? Okay, I'm going to do it right now. There's the link. Guys, please jump in. Please check out. For people who are new to the Figma, on page number 2 we have chill out lounges. You can actually chill out there. Page number 3 is where we're working right now. That's where the screens are. Getting back to this. So we created this background element. We created this here. What typography should you use? Right? Typography is actually a very important part of design. Because if you look at any screen, right? Any screen right now, you're on YouTube, whether on your phone or your computer, like 90% of the screen is text, right? And if you didn't do this well, if your typography wasn't clear, if it didn't clearly set hierarchy, then there would be a problem, right? Most UIs, you want to be able to read the information really well. The purpose of a lot of UI screens is to convey the information it's supposed to at that given time. So typography is super important. The details of typography, how to use type, there's an in-detailed video about that. You will be able to find this on my channel. It's called, I think, Using Type or something like that. This one, Using Type in UI Design. You guys should check that out. But that's typography. I don't want to go deep in this live stream, but you can check that video out. Coming back to Figma, what I did here, I set this up. The typography, the font that I used, I'm using this font called Termina. This is a font that I like, which is why I use it. Fonts in general, life. If you look at when I started graphic design first on Photoshop, when I started learning it, I would go on dafont.com and try the coolest fonts, right? I had the GTA font. I had the font for like Iron Maiden and like a lot of cool shit. Like I had a collection of fonts. But unfortunately, when it comes to UI, you want fonts which are readable, not fonts which are cool, right? I'm calling them fonts. They're technically typefaces. The difference between that, you can check it out on Booklets when I share it. But you want typefaces that are readable. So in general, it's a good idea if you're a beginner to stick with very basic typefaces, which is if you're designing an Android app, stick to Roboto. That's the default Android typeface. If you're designing an iOS app, stick to SF Pro, which is the typeface for iOS. If you're designing for web, I would say go to Google Fonts. So you would have to replace, instead of going to DaFonts, you go to Google Fonts. Google Fonts is probably the best collection of free fonts online, so you can actually find stuff. You can even find Indian fonts here, which is really cool. So check this out. For here I use Termina Demi. Termina Demi is something I've used in I think UISources before. I've used it in some other side projects I've done. I like how it looks. This second font here is WorkSense. This is actually what we use at Unacademy as well for body copy. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you type options, right? So this stuff on top here, I think it doesn't look as good. I'm going to see if this looks better with WorkSense. Right, this is a little smaller now. I think this makes it easier to read. I'm just going to move this here. So if you guys want to know what keys I'm using the Alt key to show these numbers. These numbers are actually really useful, and throughout your designing process, you're going to be doing this. You're going to be holding down Alt to see the distance between things, right? One part about grid is just being able to make sure everything is evenly aligned to each other. So this is 24. I'm going to hold down Shift and move side. So now this is technically aligned to the edge. This edge here, how I got it was, if I want to show my grid option again, I'm going to click this frame, show grid. This is what this is. These red lines here, what I did was I did Shift R. This is the ruler option. You can also get it from view show rulers, and this basically these, they're called, I think, guidelines in Photoshop. So I'm going to bring one here right now to show you. I'm going to zoom in, make sure it's exactly on my column grid, and then I'm going to hide the overall grid because I don't need it right now. right? So this now, let me just adjust it. Now let's talk about spacing, right? Spacing between these. This is 32, 34, 34, 34. That's not consistent. Now if I had to fix this up, Figma has a really cool thing. You can hold down shift, select these layers, and do this thing here called distribute horizontal spacing or distribute vertical spacing, which is you can go in here and using this handle change what the spacing is. Now you notice when I'm doing that, one second. Let me just check on the stream actually. One second. Okay, all good. Now you see when I'm doing this, when I'm going into this and changing this, it's moving to the left. The reason is all of these items are left aligned. Since they're going to be on the right, I'm going to right align them by using this option here. And I'm just going to move this here. And change this to certain value. Now, one thing to keep, I don't know why it's still moving to the left, but whatever, we'll get through that. One thing to keep in mind is spacing throughout your site. It should be very consistent, which is if here you're choosing 16 pixels as the spacing between these two items, the next time similar items appear, the spacing should also be 16. This seems fairly obvious, but that's how you maintain consistency, which is why in general I would recommend for you to follow a spacing system as well, which is the space between the two smallest elements on the page should be 8 pixels. Let's say you do this. The next biggest should be 16. I'm just making up one right now. This is actually the spacing system we use at Unacademy as well. We use multiples of 8 for spacing because it just makes it very easy to calculate. So this right here, this is spacing, right? Overall, all spacing that I do on my website should be a multiple of this. Now you guys can understand why, if you just stick to this, things become really easy. If you're placing an element on the page, all you have to do is figure out grid-wise where does it lie, and then whatever the nearest element is, what is the spacing. And based on that, you have consistent spacing like this and consistent spacing like this. Are you guys understanding? Should I slow down? Just let me know. So what I'm creating right now is the spacing system we use at Unacademy. And I'll apply this to the whole page right now so you can see how it's actually used. Exactly. For spacing, we're using an 8 pixel grid. Let me show you another way of doing this grid. If you guys are not, if this thing is a little hard to understand, I have these here, right? So now what that means is all of these should be a multiple of 8. Should it be 8 or 16, right? The way to figure that out is just try it out. So I go here. I have my system says the spacing should be either 8 or 16 or upwards. With 8, it feels like it's too close. So then I would maybe try 16. 16 feels okay. But what about 24? 24 also feels okay. What about 32? So technically like this, a lot of UI is about trying stuff out, seeing what looks good, and then based on that, you develop your intuition. Like over time, you realize how to do things, right? Like now this looks way neater. And now what I'll quickly do is I'll select all of these and I'll hit Command G or Control G, which puts all of these in a group. So now I can just move them together. It's been grouped on the left side here. Now this group, I'm going to align it with this group by using this option here. So the way it would work is, let's say this was here. I select both of these, and these things on top right here, these are the alignment options. So what you would do is just do this, which is align top, and you have these aligned. Now how far should this be from the top? It's 52. According to our grid system, it can be either 32, which feels too close to the edge. I'm going to group both of these again with Command G, or I can select both of these and say right click, group selection, but over time you'll get used to the keyboard shortcuts, which makes things faster. So this spacing becomes 48, right? 48 looks okay to me, but I would want to still try 64. This I think looks ideal, so I'm going to keep it as this. This size right here, I want to see how far it is. It's 69 right now. I'm going to make this also 64. Somebody asked, can you share a preview of a Figma? Well, exactly. What I've done with you guys, the Figma link on top, that is a preview. You can also share a direct prototype link, which I'll get to in just a sec if we have time for it today. So I keep the 64. You notice the text here, I've made it gray, which is, let's just talk a little bit about typography options here. So this here is the typeface. By default, this pulls up a bunch of typefaces from Google Fonts. But if you install your own typefaces, your fonts on your computer, it will show up here as well. So different type options. You have typeface. You have this thing which is called weight, which is the weight of the font, which is bold. You have black. Some fonts have a lot of weight, some have only a few. So for example, this Termina here, the weight is demi, and I don't have any other weights, right? Other styles. Let's talk about this. So, guys, give me some more copy for this. What should I put? Initiate to create this. Join the community. Learn sources. So I've created this paragraph here. Now I'm going to talk about the text style. This is work sans. It's medium, the weight, right? I can set this to regular. For now, I'll just choose medium. Size here is 20. Over time, the same way that we defined a system for spacing, you should also define a system for typography, which is, you have this here. This, whatever you, let me change this to medium. Now this, for example, is a heading. This is an H1, right? In the other pages that you create on the website, all H1s should have the same style. So in Figma, you can actually do this and you can create a new text style. So I can say this, I'm going to call it H1 and create style. So in the future, now let's say I created let's say I'm gonna create a new page now for live streams, right? So what I'm gonna do is hold Alt and just move this here. I'm gonna duplicate this artboard. Another way I can duplicate this artboard is just clicking right here and clicking duplicate. Okay guys, there is a duplicate option basically. Take my word for it. But I'm going to duplicate this here, and let's say this wasn't here, right? Let's say I just created some text which is live streams. Now this text style, I've defined it as an H1. So in the future, my pages, I can just click on any text and say H1 and it'll automatically apply this, right? So when you get started, as you start creating designs, start putting all of these things in place, which is your text styles, your spacing systems, the colors you use. So like this purple here, this is not the purple I want to use, right? What I actually want to use is the purple I use everywhere else. Let's find where I've used it. I want to use this purple. So to do that, I'm just going to take a screenshot of this. Technically, I could just open the Figma file for these thumbnails, but I think that'll be a little slower. I am going to paste that screenshot right here. And I want to change this purple. So I'll just go here. I just want to change just the designer's part. So I'll select this. I have this filled here. I'll say pick up this. Now you see even here there's a lot of different shades of purple, so I'm not gonna get the perfect one. That's because of the way the screenshot is, but that's also chill. And you see this has been set. Now I actually want this to be a little different. I'm going to quickly talk about how to set colors, right? This is going to be a quick crash course. Basically, colors, the way you define colors on computers, you have hex values, you have RGB values, but the one you want to use is HSB. Now, HSB value stands for hue, saturation, and brightness. The hue is basically this. So when I change this, you see this number is changing. That's the hue, right? So let's say I just set it here for now. This is saturation. Saturation is basically going right way. So on the x-axis, which means it's more saturated, which is right here, or less saturated, which is here. And the last one is brightness, which is how bright is it. So like here, this is very bright, and as I go, you can see that number is changing, which is less bright. So that is a very useful tip for defining a color palette, which is, let's say I quickly wanted to define what colors am I using on my site, right? Like I've defined text styles, I've defined spacing. Colors, let's say one of them is this color that I use here for the background. Another color is the one that I use for the text, which is just pure black. Another is this, which I've used here, which is black, and I've changed it to 50% opacity. So this, and then I have the purple. So I have two purples. One is this really saturated purple that I have, and one is my ideal purple which I want to get, which I normally use, which is this one. But even this, I'm not able to get the perfect one because it's a blurry screenshot. So now if I wanted to actually play around with the purple, I would do this. I would fix the hue, right, wherever I want it to be, and I would just play around with the saturation. So if I want to be more bright, I would just increase the number. Less bright, I would reduce the number. Less bright goes to black, more bright goes to white. Right, that's the way to remember it. And if this is confusing for you to understand, don't worry about it. You'll get it once you start using it. Or I can just like move around here. Do you use a website to create color palette? I actually don't. There are a few out there. If you think they're useful, go for it. I'll also be sharing what I'm going to be doing is all the concepts we talked about here. I'm going to be sharing slides with you, and these aren't going to be slides, these are going to be booklets. So I'm going to share a booklet with you, which is how to find colors, how to, what is UI, what is UX. I'm going to be sharing that when I share the invite code with you guys. So let's say this is the purple I went with for now. This is technically not the correct purple, so it's irritating me a little bit. Let me go here. Now if I want to define my color palette, the same thing that we did for text styles, I can just go up here, right here, and say add new color. And in the future, so now let's say I call this purple Okay, this is an okay purple. This is still not the perfect one that I want, but it's okay for now. What I can do is I can just quickly change this to purple by doing this, right? So setting that is really good. Color group in Figma like Illustrator, I'm not sure what color groups are. I actually haven't used Illustrator before. But overall guys, let me talk a little bit more about text styles. Coming back to text styles from color. अगर color समझ में नहीं आया, that's totally fine. Once you're designing, you'll get it. Other text styles, right? We talked about color as one of the text styles and how to create this kind of text style. Here, now you have the typeface, you have the weight, you have the size. I'm going to set this to 16 just so that, actually 24. No, it's too much. Okay, 20 is fine actually. This is something called line height, which is the space between lines. Ideally, for good readability, you want this to be somewhere around 120% to 150%. Why that is, you'll realize, because I'll show you an example of all three, right? Let's say this was a paragraph you had anywhere in your UI. This could have been anywhere. And let's say the line spacing was 100%. Right? This is tight. This is harder to read. Let's say it was 120%. This is slightly easier to read. 150%, this is really well to read. Even if you had, so if you look at other websites as well, content heavy websites, they all typically follow 150%. And in CSS, typically that's defined as 1.5, which is 1.5x of your font style. Figma uses percentages, but you can also set, like, if you don't want percentage, you can set this to be 24. You can set what you want that style to be. In general, not too important, but I mean, in general, you don't have to worry about this. Typically 150% and you should be good. So now that I've set this right here is letter spacing, right? Letter spacing is basically the distance between letters. You most likely will never have to use this. I use this for logos sometimes, but otherwise never. You have something called paragraph spacing, which is basically this same thing, but applied to paragraphs, which is this. What would the space be between paragraphs? So all of this is covered in typography. The typography video, which is this, how to use typography in UI design, you can check those out later. The advantage of using HSB over RGB is meant to be a machine value. Since HSB is more intuitive. What do I mean by that? Is RGB, if I change R, I don't know what will exactly happen to the color. If I change G, I don't know what will happen. If I change B, I don't know what will happen. Versus if I change HSB, I know that if I change H, hue will change, which is this slider. If I change S, this will change, which is the saturation. If I change brightness, this will change, up and down. So it's very simple. Saturation is like this, brightness is like this. So HSB helps you do that. RGB you would not be able to do it. Like RGB, if I went from here, this is 12, 16, 20, right? But then if I go here, these are just like random numbers. So this is good for like RGB is a good notation for computers, but HSB is a more human notation. So I'm going to set this color to black. Now let's say I wanted to set this to gray, right? There are two ways I can do it. I can set it to black and I can use the slider, which is opacity. So I can say 50% and this is gray. Or if I wanted to change this to the exact color, instead of using opacity, I just have to change this to brightness 50, which is here, right? And this is exactly the same color. So the HSB value for this is hue is 0, saturation is 0, brightness is 50. Different between HSB and HSL. HSB is hue, saturation, brightness. L is luminosity. There is a difference, but I'm not going to get into it right now. Um, I don't want to cover it at the moment. So I said this now. I want to check the spacing between this. So according to our this thing, it should be either 8, which feels to me a little tight. So I'll make it 16, which seems okay. 24 also seems okay. But now let's look at this element. Let's say I wanted this to be the first video you should watch if you're joining 10K designers, right? So this is the thumbnail of the video. The way I created this, right, is I first created a rectangle. This rectangle was the size that I wanted it to be, right, whatever that was. Now the properties that this rectangle has, fill is right now it's filled with a color. What I'll do is I'll say I want to fill this with an image, which is I would go here and I would choose an image and I would say this one that I downloaded from Unsplash, this gets set. And I can change this here to fill, fit, crop, tile. I'm just going to set this to fill. I can change the size, which sort of changes that fill. Then what I did was I set the corner radius. I made this rounded to 24. And then I added another fill on top of it, which was a solid black fill, and then I changed the opacity to 50%. Now, in terms of visual design, the reason I did that was if this wasn't present, technically it would be okay, but assuming it was a different image, this play button might not be visible. Like it might feel like it's a part of the image itself, which is why having another layer on top, whether it's a low brightness thing like this, or you could do, I could make it to make it this color and change it to 10%, whatever. Right? It's sort of just an overlay. It sort of helps highlight UI elements. Then I put this play button on top. This was a circle. About icons in UI, let's talk about that right now. So for this icon, what I just did was I created a shape, right, which is a polygon shape. I did this, create this triangle, polygon shape, so you can actually just change the number of edges this has. 3 is a triangle, and then I changed this. But ideally, you won't be able to create this really well. You won't be able to create icons for every single thing. This is a simple icon. But for something else, you would need more defined things. So the best thing that I have to say for icons is find an icon kit, which is at Unacademy, for example, we have our own custom icon kit. These icons are made in Illustrator. But before we had that, we were using this thing called, we were just using material design icons. And this is let me just check the stream. Is it going fine? It seems to be okay. Material design, this is just a kit by Google where you can actually find icons for what you're looking for. So if you're designing for Android, use these. If you're designing for web, you can also use these, but there are nicer icon kits out there, so find something that you like. If you're designing for iOS, you can use the iOS kits, or you can use the iOS kits, iOS icon kits, or you can use a custom one. Is the stream fine, guys? My music stopped playing. Hold on.
Connected to admin ads icon. Admin ads MacBook Pro disconnected. Connected to admin ads icon and admin ads MacBook Pro.
This is crazy, right? Live stream inside a live stream. Am I muted? Can you guys hear me? Is there a problem with the audio? Okay, so icons, how often you prefer? That's a odd question. I mean, when you need it, you use it. A lot of times we make custom icons. A lot of the times we use our kit. If there is something available in the kit that satisfies what we need to do, we use an existing one. If not, we make a custom one, or we change, like we create something custom. But over time, you will also define an icon set. This will be the set of icons that you use in your UI designs, uh, and it grows over time. But the best thing to do is to actually just find a kit. That's the most convenient, and that's what I've done for all my projects. I don't create my own icons. So the way I created this icon, though, let me talk about that. Let me actually delete this. Is I first use the shape tool to create a circle. SF symbols is also what you can use when you're designing for iOS. I actually haven't used it yet, but SF symbols are basically the icons for iOS. I should check that out. I will do that. I will also share a booklet with you guys in the Telegram group, which has a guide to using SF symbols. And I think I'll share one around how to find icon sets. So that should be good. So the way I did that was I created the shape here. I set this color, and it's just that. I set the color. Another way I could have done this is to actually go here and find the color I want. So I've done this, and the play button I just showed it to you guys, which was the polygon tool. So you do this. I changed the color to white, and then I changed this to 4, and then I just rotated this to, so if I want to rotate, I can just do this, or I can actually go and set a proper value, minus 45, minus 90, and then I will just align this here, and then I'm going to group both of these, and I'm going to give it a slight shadow. So the way to do that is I would go into effects. When I did that, you notice this shadow automatically got applied. I can actually then go in and change the values. Guys, you want the music, right? For sure. Let me just get that back. Hold on. So technically we're in 2 hours in. It's 11 right now. I want to move this to Q&A. Hopefully this has covered enough about Figma. I don't think I went too much in depth. I could have, but that's okay. There will be a live stream in another few days where I will pick up on what I left off. So watch out for that. This live stream is not over, by the way. I'm still talking. Still going to go through a few more things. There's this one video on my website which is Learn Figma in 25 minutes. Which is basically this video but sped up, and I only talked about specific stuff. You can check out this video. It's called Learn UI Design in 25 minutes. Alright guys, please start asking your questions right now because we're in the end of the stream. I want to answer a few questions before we stop this one. So what I was doing here was just changing this drop shadow. The properties here are blur, which is how blurred is it going to be. So you see that this is very blurred, this is slightly blurred. You'll figure out what is ideal, figure out what looks good. Another tip that I would suggest, if you want to develop an intuition for how, like stuff like this, right? Like what text sizes should I use? How big should certain elements be? What color should things be? What should the spacing be? How much of a shadow should I apply? The best way to do this is actually to just take screenshots of other apps and websites and try recreating it. So keep the PNG right there, a screenshot, and by visually looking at it with your eyes, try recreating that. If you want to understand more about this technique, you can check out this video, which is the best way to practice design. This talks about the technique overall, and then this 1 hour video is me recreating the TikTok UI to show you how that works. Ashna's for spacing, we talked about this earlier in the stream, which is try to define a set of spacings that you will use. So like the minimum spacing I will use is 8, and then 16, 24, 32, 60, 48, 64, 128. This just helps things stay consistent. So horizontally as well as vertically. So just a multiple of 8. It's an 8 grid. So now I've set this shadow here. I set this up here. Difference between layers and groups. A group is it's a group of layers. So like this right here, right, is made of 2 layers. This polygon and this ellipse. Technically this should be grouped because logically they're here together. If I wanted to align this, a very quick way to align is to select this, the layers that you want to align, and then use this thing on top, these alignment tools. So I would say center align. There you go, it's aligned. So now I'm going to group these again with Command G. And the spacing from top, I'm going to set it to one of our predefined values. This here was 24, so I'll probably try 24. But I think it should be a little more, just my intuition. So I'm going to set it to 48. And what do you guys think of this website so far, right? We just quickly made this. It's not great. But you can see this, you could potentially see this being a real website, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you quickly how I would create these items here. So I've created a section for videos. I want to just set thumbnails for this. So I'm going to quickly create a component. What I mean by that is you have this feature here which is components in Figma. I'm not going to talk about it right now. I think this is a little advanced. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create one of these. Ashna, that's a really good idea. What we can do is in the next live stream, let's pick up on this design. Let's actually complete this website. Let's code it in Webflow and then let's release it, right? That I think will be a good learning for all of us to see from the beginning to the end how it came out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just set a bunch of thumbnails from my YouTube. Now you see this is not happening correctly. If I set it to fill, it crops some of the edges. Fit, it shows that extra bars on the top. Reason for that is most videos have a 16:9 ratio. So I want to maintain that. And it sounds complicated, but simple way is I've set the width. This width is according to our grid. I'm just going to set the height of this. And the way I'll do that is width is 268. So 16:9, which means a little bit of math here. 150. So the height of this should be 150. And now you see when I set it 150, these bars will disappear. There you go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the title, how to set goals in 2020. I'm going to make this a little smaller, maybe 14. I haven't really defined our text style, so I'm just randomly creating right now. I'm going to create another which is maybe, let's say, the category. So for that I want to change this text style to, let's say, I'll change this to caps. I'll make it slightly smaller and I'll make it gray in color. The reason I'm doing this is just because I think this is the way to go. You'll figure out small hacks like this over time. So I'm gonna call this mindset, which is the category name. And another thing I want to add here is, let's say, the duration of this video. So I'm going to do exactly what YouTube does, which is creating this rectangle like this, making it black, making it kind of low opacity, and then I'll put the text color here, so which is, let's say, 12 minute 32 seconds. I mean, I'll put the text here, and I'll just move this like here. The spacing I want, remember guys, we set a spacing this thing, so it should be either 4 or 8. You guys notice there's this extra space here at the bottom. This is because of our line height. You don't have to worry about that right now. So what I'm going to do is set this to 4 and this one to 4 as well. Are you guys following along so far? Just leave something in the comments, because we're near the end of the stream. We're going to wrap up by 11:30, which is why it might seem like I'm hurrying through a few things. But don't worry, there's going to be more live streams in the future where I'll talk about some of these things again. And I'll also be sharing some booklets on the Telegram group. And you can also check out the videos I've made where some of these concepts are covered. So I've created this component here. Personally, I don't think it looks great, but for now it's okay. I'm just going to create a really long text. So this, ideally, I want it only to be till this edge. So I'm going to change this to that much. The spacing, to check it, what you have to do is hold Alt, which is, you have to select this. When you do Alt, it shows you the space, whichever side you go on. So here, for example, the space should probably be 8. This can probably be 8 as well. Here, I hold down Alt and it shows me all 4 sides what the spacing is. It's 1, 1, 4, 4. Technically, it shouldn't be 1 because it's not in our spacing system. But for now, it's okay. So what I'm going to do with this thing that we created right now, the line height, I haven't set it. I'm going to set it to 120%. 150%. Right, that looks a little bit more spaced out now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag these items, all of these. I'm just going to hit Command G. So now this groups it as one element. Now if I just wanted to duplicate these, what I would do is hold this, hold down the Alt key and just drag this across like that. And this spacing, shows up there. And then if I've dragged this, if I wanted to duplicate it once more, I can just hit Command D. Right, that's cool. You don't need shortcuts technically, but you'll learn them over time. Let's just quickly open up our grid again. So roughly it falls on grid, but you see it's slightly going off. I'm not going to fix that for now. I think it's okay. Our grid, the gaps between it are 20. That technically is not going with our spacing system we set. But what you can just do is change this grid to this gutter, which is 20. You can change to 16. So now you see that has changed. Now this is 16. And I'm just going to hide this now. Now since this is a heading, I would probably want it to be Termina Demi as well. So I'm going to say Termina 24 is good. And what I'll do is spacing 24. And I'll also put one here, one thing here called see all. I mean, we don't need it right now, but you know, maybe assuming this goes to a new page, I'll just put it. Now I'll show you the very cool thing that's important. That is a shortcut. Let's say I wanted to copy the style of this thing, this text style over here. One way to do it would be open this, see these values and put these values here. But another way is you can click this and you can say uh, copy properties. And the shortcut for this, you can see it here, is Command Alt C. So copy properties and then just paste properties. You see that? That really helps. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just set this to purple now. And I'll just set this to right alignment and I'll move it to the side. So for moving it, what I'm doing is I'm holding shift to nudge it. So I do this and then I nudge small values. So guys, this is it for this video. Unfortunately, we couldn't talk about apps, but we'll probably talk about that in the next live stream. For now, I want you guys to, we have about 15 minutes left on this live stream. So please ask any questions you have right now. If you haven't joined the Telegram group, please do that. If you don't have the link to Figma, you can check that out as well. You can just scroll. How do I adjust the grid size? Yeah, I'll just show you. So what I did was, link for Telegram is t.me/abnux. So select the frame, this layout grid here. The properties this has is firstly number. So you can say 8, I want it to be a 4 grid. I want it to be 12. We chose 12 because it's divisible by 2, 3, 4, 6. So that helps when creating these kind of items. You can just set this color. You know, I just want it to be like really light, so I can just do this. This is the opacity. Type, stretch, center, gutter. This is this kind of thing. I'm just going to keep it stretch for now. Width stays auto. Margin, this is basically the left and right spacing. So like here and here. Our central column was pretty random. It was 843. Typically, the size that is used is, you can actually do this. Take screenshots of other websites and try them out and see what kind of columns size do they do. So let me show you an example of that. Let's say I went to YouTube. I took a screenshot of this. I'm just going to post the link to the Telegram group here again. It's actually, can somebody post it? I'll just do this for now. The link is t.me/abnux. So guys, check this out. Let's say I wanted to see what kind of grid does YouTube do, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this in a frame, just like this. And I'm going to just try out with this to figure out what the grid is. So I'm going to say grid, columns, margin, let's say 20, 100, 200. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find that grid for the center thing. And I don't think it's center aligned, so we're not going to get it. But let's increase this to, they probably have a 12 column grid as well. So I'm not able to do this right now, but these are the grid options that you have basically. So when you are setting the page, all you need to do is you need to first figure out your main content area. How wide is it going to be? So this is how many pixels wide? It's 1200. So their main content area is 1200. Now 1200, if you have to divide it into 12 columns, each column is probably 120. But the way you would do that is just by trying this out. So once you set 12, you set the margin, which is the left and right sides, and yeah, dude, you'll get it. You'll get it. Any other questions? We're gonna wrap this up now. We have 9 minutes left. We're gonna wrap this up exactly at 11:30. So please ask me. I am also going to okay guys, by the way, before I forget this, do you guys know Booklets IO, what it is? It's this Instagram account. This is my Instagram account only. Basically what we're trying to do, me and Mayank's helping me on this. He's in the live stream as well. We're putting together content from other designers as well as ourselves to teach how to teach you everything around design. So specific design, things like freelancing, you have business, you have job hunting, you have typography. Design is a huge field, right? And people normally say, it's all on the internet, but where is it, right? You have to actually go and find it. Booklets.io is putting all of that together from some of the best designers in the world. Right now, it's just an Instagram account. If you go to Booklets.io, we have a coming soon page. But for all of you who watched this stream so far, I'm going to share a special invite code, and you will be able to get access to 320 booklets. I don't want to show that in the video right now because it's a secret code, but I'm going to send that in the Telegram group. So let me just show you what the website looks like as well without revealing the URL. Check this out. So this is booklets.io. Some of the things we talked about today. Let's go to UI design. I will actually send you links to specific booklets that will talk about the things we talked about in this video as a way for you to revise and just keep it on top of mind. I will also, so I'm going to put together some of these links. I'm going to do that after the stream. You will, with that, get an invitation to booklets.io. It's basically a link that only you guys will have. You can check it out. You will also be able to see things like this, how to pick color palette for UI design. We talked about SF symbols, somebody mentioned that in the chat, something more about that. What is UI thinking? How to design cards, let's say. Things that I might not be able to teach in the limited time I have, but it's out there, so I've put it all together in one place, especially for you guys. So you can check this out. I'll show you an example of what this looks like. So let's say you want to find out how do you align different font sizes horizontally. This is important. The way you do this, you can just check this, and here, this is a booklet. And with this you can browse, by the author, you can browse by category, and you can find more content. So I want you guys to use this, but I also want to thank you for sticking on this stream. So this invite URL, I would ask that you keep it secret only for yourself. When we launch eventually, you can feel free to share. But for now, let's keep it within ourselves. So you have these categories on the left hand side. Feel free to browse according to your interest, whatever looks good. I will also be working on this site a lot more. This is just the first version, so which is why you notice it's, I wouldn't say it's basic, but it's pretty limited. I have a total of 320 booklets across these categories. I will also be adding a lot more to this and figuring out how I can make this resource more useful for all of you. So some final questions. Moj Masti asks, how can I become a creative app designer? You have to build your skills. So build your intuition first. मतलब अंदर से feel आनी चाहिए, this is good, this is not good. You should be able to look and say something is off about this. You know, इसमें feel नहीं आ रही, इसमें feel आ रही है. And the way you do that is by designing more. Eventually, you'll start realizing how things fit into place. To do that, you need to recreate apps. That's a good way to practice. That's like tracing. If you want to understand how to do it, check out the videos that are already on my channel. But it's going to take a while. You won't be able to design unique, really good looking apps that work really well. But to do that, you'll have to practice. Alright guys, we're close to the end of this live stream. How do I get stuck on ideas and wireframing? Cool, I'm going to do that. I'll take an app concept, wireframe it and go live. The thing with wireframing is stick to paper, number one. Number two, technically wireframing is for yourself. It's for you to translate the ideas that are in your head on paper. So it's just going one step higher, which is from concept to something visual. You're not jumping from concept to final design. You're going in small steps. So that is my tip for wireframing. Do as much as possible and understand that it's just for yourself. It's just to get the ideas out from your head on paper. Alright guys, we have 3 minutes to go for this live stream. Final questions please. Darshan's question. Suggest some books on UX. Darshan, I actually don't. Personally, I haven't read many UX books because I don't think textbooks are the best. Not textbooks, but textbooks and the written format is not the best for design, because designing is a visual thing. So personally, I find videos is way better. On Booklets IO, however, I've added this section called book summaries, which has a few books about design. So for example, Design of Everyday Things. This is a book a lot of designers will recommend to you. It talks about how you can start seeing design in all the things around you. So not just screens. So you can check this out. You can also check out the other books here. There's one called Psychology of Persuasion Influence. This is really good. Steal Like an Artist is nice because it talks about how you need to copy and find inspiration, and you need to steal what they do, but you need to steal it in a good way that makes you better and not just plagiarism. So you can check that out. How to develop an eye for design? Practice more and you'll start noticing patterns in the real world. You can check out my video called How to Develop an Eye for Design. That's exactly what it's called. It is here, the best way to practice design, and how to develop an eye for good design. The other website that I run, this is a website that I made about a year and a half back. This helps you find apps by pattern. So for example, let's say tomorrow you are designing onboarding for an app, right? Or let's say you were designing, you were designing gamification, or you were designing a feed, right? These are common patterns that are across multiple apps. A very good way you can do this is go to these categories on the left and you'll be able to browse how other apps do it. You'll be able to see the full flow. And I have about 700 patterns across 87 something apps. And you can also check out the screenshots here and flows. So let's say I wanted to do App Store screenshots. I can check them out here. want to check out payments and checkout flows, let's say you're designing for e-commerce, you can actually do this. And what is really cool is you can just save this image and you can start putting this in your Figma file. So that way it'll be good if you have one page here dedicated just for references, in which you paste inspiration that you see from other places. Is certification required for design? It's not. I would say certification programs try to, I mean, personally, I don't like them because most of them are like, it's like a 7-day program where they just try to cram a bunch of stuff and then they make you take an exam. Personally, I've not done any design courses. I don't have any certification. Despite that, I've done a ton of freelance projects. I lead the product design team. I'm the head of design at Unacademy, which is a venture funded startup. I have a team of 8 designers that I work with. And mostly the way I got here is by practicing and doing more problems. I mean, more apps, designing more. Alright guys, that's it for this video. I'll see you guys next time. Follow me on Instagram to figure out when the next live stream is going to be. Right after this, I'm going to share links in the Telegram group, so don't forget to join that. And I will see you next time. Thank you for watching. This has been a really fun live stream, one of many to come. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.